Now, when it comes to test driving cars, you could say from week to week, you could have a polar opposite effect. One week you're having the full throttle emotion, while the next week you're having the proverbial sipping of gas of fuel economy. But this week fell somewhere in between. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now, just a few weeks back, I test drove the HE version of this, the hybrid electric Kia Sorento. That reminded me again of that good old fuel economy. But when this version showed up, specifically the X Line, well, it gave me a little bit more elevation and, well, some turbo to boot there under the hood. So this week's model is the 2021 Kia Sorento X Line Edition, and while the HE version of this was a nice ride, had that spirited turbo under the hood, the X Line steps things up even more, specifically with the extra ground clearance by about an inch. Very robust roof rack system for all the toys and extras you may throw up here, and an advanced all-wheel drive system with that extra snow mode. And if you go off the beaten path, one thing that's going to help compared to last year is the better departure and approach angles on this vehicle. Now, by the numbers, this vehicle truly measures up, and it all starts again with what the X Line delivers when it comes to ground clearance. What you see as it sits around about 8.2 inches. That compared to the standard model, which is 6.9. And with that extra increase, and again, the all-wheel drive, this vehicle can practically climb or go over anything. As for the overall numbers, you're looking at about 189 inches, wheelbase about 110. With the extra ground clearance, that means the elevation overall height is going to be around about 70 inches and width around about 74 inches. With all that said, this vehicle is squarely fitting into the nice mid-size segment and going up against some big contenders, the Subarus, the Jeep Grand Cherokees. And if you've heard me talk about it before, when it comes to the Jeep Grand Cherokee, that vehicle, well, falls short. Not in its overall size, but its delivery of interior volume, specifically when it comes to, well, occupancy. This vehicle delivering 3 rows. The Jeep Grand Cherokee just still has not gotten there. And people will beat me up all day saying, well, that's not what that vehicle's meant for. But here's one that can take the whole family and a couple of friends. The styling lives of the Kia Sorento are far from whence it came back in the early 2000s. A little bit more quirky, obviously not the same interior volumes we have now. With the X Line, giving that extra ground clearance, really gives it a nice, beefy, robust look. It looks like it's ready to go off the beaten path, and that's what I like on a vehicle this size, that it delivers kind of the reassurance that it can go and do anything. Now, first off, when you look at the lines, really nice and tight body, not chiseling up, not looking too curvaceous, but really sleek lines all the way through. Midline pretty much doesn't break the plane, goes all the way across. A little bit of implied sportiness here on the side, and most importantly, this lower cladding all the way around. If it goes all-wheel drive and doesn't have this, well, you can just be assured you're going to have some scrapes and dings. As for this particular model, darkening it up when it comes to accents and the 4 corners, that really again gives it a nice aggressive appeal. What I also like is the approach here with the mirrors. Seems simple, but with the width around about 74 inches, tightening up, and with these mirrors, they truly get almost in line with the body, and helping minimize scrapes and dings when it comes to even just this area is a plus. Now, the overall price for this vehicle as it sits is just under $45,000. No real options to speak of, everything coming standard on the X Line, with only about $500 when it comes to some extra floor mats and the rustic color on the inside. Now, sweep around to the grille warfare. First off, you're going to see that black aggressive look when it comes to the accents, really with the grille warfare and the extra fascia that comes on the X Line. What I also like is the aggressiveness when it comes to the headlight assembly. First off, really a horizontal look and this bedazzling effect down here. Now, that's a kind of a 2 approach system. It's going to be the daytime running lights and accent light when needed. When you do the turn signal, this overrides into a turn signal. I like the fact that it's all integrated and you don't have separate operation. As you sweep down, the fog lights really tuck down low, and you do see a little bit of glossy accents when it comes to the black here and there, but no true chrome to speak of across this vehicle. Lastly, with all the falling, what I like is this exterior color. Aruba green really hides the fact that, well, yellow is covering this vehicle. Really good choice, and especially when it goes off-road, it blends in almost camouflage with the, well, appearance around you. Now when it comes to power plants in the hood, over on the electric side of things, you have the HEV that's going to deliver in the 227 horsepower range and 37 miles per gallon, or you can go with the plug-in version. It's going to be over 260 horses and a 30-mile range on pure electric. But all that aside, come over here to the gasoline side of things. It's all going to be a 2.5 liter inline 4-cylinder with or without a turbo found on this model. Now for the basic 2.5, that's going to be 191 horses and 181 foot-pounds of torque. Step things up like we have here, that's going to be 281 horses and 311 foot-pounds of torque. As for the transmission, it's going to be coupled to an 8-speed wet clutch transmission, and it does have paddle shifters to boot. Now with this vehicle measuring in at just under 190 inches and having that third row of occupancy, certainly the best delivery of creature comforts is slated for the first and second row, with the third row really being there when you need it. Now also the versatility allows you to deliver people and cargo as you see fit, and again, compared to some of the competition that are falling short, only delivering room enough for 5, this one steps up again with that option here at the back end. Now as for layout, you're seeing dual caption chairs in the front and second row. Third row is a typical bench styling with up to 2 people. Now here at the back end, first off, let's talk about design. Body color all the way around this vehicle, nice vertical rear tail lights, and pretty much tight body lines all the way around. Typical elongation here at the back end with this roofline extending out, giving this typical silhouette we've all seen. Huge bank of glass as well as safety. At the front sensors, backup sensors, and cameras all the way around, really giving you that nice 360 view. Now this vehicle doesn't drive like a mammoth on the road, but that extra, viewpoints really help minimize scrapes and dings. Lastly is the business end inside this. First off, what you're going to find is instead of the release being up here, it's going to be tucked down low. Certainly release on the key fob or just simply press right there. Now once it rises to the occasion, what you're going to see here behind the third row is just around about 12.5 cubic feet, most of it in the vertical sense, but as you note, once you get about here, this is angling up just a hair, so pretty much everything housed in this area. Now as you tumble all the seats forward, you're going to notice about up to 45 cubic feet there behind the second row, and up to around about 75 cubic feet with everything laid flat. This is that 50-50 split, and you'll notice the headrests do tumble forward. These can create quite a blind spot when they're in place, but if no one's back here, no reason to have them elevated. Simple release for tumbling these forward, to simply pull here and it tumbles forward. Obviously just pull there and it comes back up, but as you can tell, multiple options when it comes to people, cargo, and when it's all laid flat, really gives you a nice almost flat floor. Here on this particular model, of course, that gap there in the second row, but really can put some big large items here in this vehicle. Now if you're back here and you're trying to load things, one thing that is helpful is not having to go around and lay that second row down. Instead, you have releases here on the side, corresponding left and right. Just simply press it one time and it lays flat. Again, this vehicle really thinking of the versatility, again with people, and just the convenience of transforming it to cargo. Now the big story for me being what's going on here in the third row, the availability, delivering that extra occupancy. Well, I had to test it out, and with me being over 6 feet tall, naturally it's going to be a somewhat compromising affair. But the big surprise was what it delivers here in the front and second row when it comes to legroom numbers, equal numbers, around about 41 inches. That means there could be a little bit of give here for the nosebleed section, specifically allowing the second row to slide forward just a hair. Now what you're going to find back here is under 30 inches, which modestly means you're going to be kind of obviously feeling the knee impact on the seat back. But what I actually found is decent comfort. Now first off, when it comes to transitioning, what you'll see in the second row is it does lean forward and slide. So once your passenger gets back here, they can simply either keep it leaned forward and ease it back, or grab the red handle down low. That's obviously going to help with getting out as well, and just simply ease it back. Now at any point you can straighten the seat back. That's going to lock it into place. But let's just say the second row wants all their leg room. That means you're going to slide it all the way back, lock it in. What I do like with the second row like it is, that means this inner leg can stretch out, meaning only one knee bleeding affair. But if you had to tuck both in, you have nice availability to put your feet underneath the seat and find decent comfort. Now the knees are going to be slightly elevated, and it's not going to be overall that bad. The bench is somewhat planted to the floor, but overall, even with my 6-foot lanky frame, I found decent comfort. Now, when it comes to my complaint department here on the Sorento, I had to dig and look to finally find one, because pretty much it went for a whole week and really didn't have that much to argue about, except for the ingress on this vehicle. And I mention it all the time when a vehicle falls short with easeability, and the Sorento does that just a little bit, specifically when it comes to accessing any door or hatch on this vehicle. Now, at the back, the electronic release, at the front door is this simple button, but for the second row, just no access point. That means if you're backseat drivers and it's raining, well, if you get here first, you still got to wait for this person to get here, because simply just press it once unlocks everything with ease. But for a vehicle in its mid $40,000 range, why not, well, apply that here. What I do like though is when it's locked up, that means everything. The mirrors tuck in, the doors are locked, and even right down to the fill-up area. So if I had to argue that there's one complaint, well, this is still just a very minor one. Now, I'd say it's standard setup here inside the Kia Sorento, but I'm getting more and more used to the infotainment systems that this lineup is delivering. And what you'll notice is Bose, so you got premium all the way around. But really, this didn't take my notice, but rather the LCD display for the gauge cluster. No analog to be found here, but in the virtual sense, digital when it comes to the speed and tachometer. Now, what's great with this type of interface is it's not static, but instead dynamic. What I'm referring to is really just the interaction with safety. And what you'll find here is when you turn on the turn signal, for example, well, there's a corresponding video signal of what's beside the vehicle. Left turn signal, obviously on the left. Hit the right side, you'll see it there on the right. And what you'll also notice is the information doesn't go away. The tach's still up there on the top right of that image. And if you go back to speed, you'll see that as well displayed in the top. So you're never losing the information, but instead giving a nice visual for safety. Now, naturally, you do have blind spot awareness that translates over there to the mirror. So you got tons of safety options when it comes to when you're driving. Now, I mentioned earlier about the surround view on this vehicle, and naturally that turns into the camera here on the infotainment system. This bird's eye view that really gives you that surround look, as well as specifically which direction you're going with this kind of full view here as well. Now, if you go into drive at slower modes, you will get, of course, that forward thinking camera, and again, that surround, and you do have multiple options to zoom into if you prefer. One thing it does take a second to get used to is this is your default screen. Every time you crank up the car, this particular setup has this viewpoint, basically less distracting. Naturally, your music's going to come on, so if you always have a preset, this just allows you to kind of forget about what's going on here and keep your eyes kind of looking forward. But if you do need to go to your traditional setup, just find your shortcut over here on the left, and you will go full screen with this infotainment area like we see. Naturally, going to the map, everything goes full screen like you prefer. But again, if you kind of get distracted, there's always going to be a way to get back to the main screen like this, and just allows for a little bit more serenity versus technology at your ready. Now, this vehicle doesn't have a tri-zone system, but there is nice venting there on the back of the center console, so plenty of airflow that really gets down this vehicle. But really what you're going to find is dual zones up front, nice individual selectors here on the outer side. The fan speed, not my preferred with touch button, but it is nice and big and right where you need it, so it is easy to kind of increase the fan speed when needed. One surprising feature was heated and cooled seats. A lot of vehicles just coming with the heated, but cooling is becoming more and more of an option on a lot of vehicles. What you also find is sleekness in the form of this covering. Once you kind of push it out of the way, you will find connectivity in the form of USB connections, as well as wireless charging over here on the right. Now, I mentioned earlier about the advanced all-wheel drive system, and you'll find the selector knob over here. You can get into that sport mode. That's going to couple nicely with those paddle shifters, but really the off-road prowess is where this vehicle delivers, and obviously that snow mode in those slippery situations. You do have auto stop, auto start feature, which means that engine is going to kind of turn off when you come to a stop. If you don't like that, just simply turn it off as well as turning on your cameras Tons of controls here on the steering wheel. On the left side, entertainment. Over here on the right, really comes down to cruise control. I like how this kind of has an autonomous feel. Not true, you can't go hands-free, but what you'll notice is this right here. That allows you to turn on the lane awareness, and it does kind of this little tug here and there. You do have to kind of keep your hand on the steering wheel. It will know if you don't. That just allows it to know that you are in control, but it will keep you in your lane with modest tugs here and there. You can turn that off so it doesn't have to be on all the time, but again, nice safety feature. Now it does for this edition Road Warrior on a test drive behind the wheel of the 2021 Kia Sorento X Line edition, a vehicle that delivers that extra height, advanced off-road worthiness, turbo, and again, passenger comfort that gives you tons of variation from cargo to people. But at the end of the day, it is a nice size vehicle that delivers tons of options. Now, as always, thank you for watching this edition Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.